You ever have one of those moments where something small, a detail, a scent, a glance, makes your stomach turn, even though nothing's technically wrong? That's what happened the night I got home early from a delivery shift in Maine. It was raining hard, thick drops hammering the windshield as I cut through the back roads. Grateful to be done earlier than planned. I figured Laura would be surprised, maybe a little annoyed I didn't text ahead, but mostly happy. We'd been kind of off lately, you know? Missing each other, getting short over little things. So I thought maybe tonight I could reset things. Just show up, dry off, pour us a drink, laugh at an old movie like we used to. I didn't expect the Mustang. It was dark blue, almost black in the rain, parked a few doors down from the house. Not close enough to be suspicious at first glance, but it stood out. Maine plates are pretty easy to spot, and this one wasn't local. New York, maybe. No bumper stickers. Clean, polished, expensive. And just sitting there. No one inside. Engine off. I tried to shake the unease and parked in our usual spot. The porch light was on. Curtains drawn. Nothing outwardly strange. Still, I paused before unlocking the door. The sound of rain on the roof suddenly too loud. Call it intuition. Or maybe I'd been feeling this coming for a while. The house smelled different. Laura usually burned lavender candles, soft and floral. Tonight it was something heavier, muskier, cologne, maybe. Not mine. It hung in the air, stubborn and sharp. "Laura?" I called out, dropping my bag by the coat rack. No answer, but I could hear the shower running upstairs. I walked slowly through the living room. Her book lay face down on the armrest. A throw blanket tossed lazily over the couch. Normal stuff, but when I got to the stairs, I noticed it. On the kitchen island, 2 mugs, side by side. One had the little chip on the handle, mine. The other was newer, different. A dark green ceramic one we definitely didn't own. Steam still curled from both. I stared at them for a long second before heading up. Our bedroom door was cracked open. Lights on. The bed was made sloppily but made. Odd for Laura, who normally left it unmade unless she was trying to impress a guest. Then I saw them. Men's clothes, folded over the chair by the window. Jeans, a flannel shirt, a leather belt, socks tucked inside black running shoes, boxers draped casually over the armrest. It hit me like a punch to the gut. None of it was mine. Not the brands, not the sizes, not the style. I stood there frozen. Not angry, not even panicked. Just stuck, like my body didn't know what to do with the information. Then the water shut off. Laura stepped out of the bathroom wrapped in a Berg *NDY towel I didn't recognize. Her wet hair clung to her neck, and she had that same blank look she gave when I caught her sneaking a second glass of wine before dinner. Surprised, but playing it cool. "Oh," she said, blinking at me. "You're home early." She smiled, like nothing was weird, like this was all normal. And maybe I was crazy because part of me wanted to believe her. I wanted to think there was a simple explanation for everything. Maybe the clothes were from Goodwill donations she was sorting. Maybe the coffee mugs were for a neighbor. Maybe the cologne. No excuse there. I stared at her. "What's going on?" She glanced at the clothes, then at the coffee mugs downstairs, and then back at me, quick, calculating. And just like that, the story poured out. "My cousin Chris," she said. "From Vermont. He's visiting last minute. His hotel's water was out or something. So I told him he could swing by and shower while I brewed us some coffee." She stepped past me, heading toward the chair. "He ran out to grab sandwiches. That's why his stuff's here." She said it so naturally, so fluidly, like she'd practiced. And maybe she had. Maybe she knew I'd come home early. Maybe she planned on me walking into this scene and needed a cover. I didn't speak. I just kept looking at the Berg *NDY towel. We never had Berg *NDY. Everything in the linen closet was blue or gray. I would have noticed it. She caught me staring again and let out a soft, offended laugh. "Jake," she said, using my name like it was a scolding. "You don't actually think something's going on, do you?" Jesus. There it was, the pivot, the deflection. She went from surprised to mildly insulted in 10 seconds flat. She even tilted her head the way she does when I forget to pay a bill. I mean, come on, she continued, voice lilting into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. You think I'm sneaking someone into our house while you're at work? That I'm stupid enough to leave clothes out and take a shower while you could come home any minute? Yes. Yes, that's exactly what I thought. But I couldn't say it. Instead, I shrugged. It just caught me off guard. That's all. She nodded, brushing past me to grab her robe. Maybe let's not jump to conclusions next time, yeah? I mean, wow. Nice welcome home. And just like that, she made me feel like the bad guy. Like I was overreacting. I wanted to push more, ask about the cologne, the second mug, the towel, but something in her tone shut me down. A warning, subtle and cold. She was good. Too good. I walked downstairs and stared at the mugs again. One had lipstick on the rim. Hers. The other had a faint, unfamiliar smudge, maybe chapstick. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. I didn't ask about it. Not that night. I cleaned up the mugs, tossed the towel in the laundry, and pretended the uneasy silence between us was just another off night. But something had shifted. She didn't offer to call her cousin. Didn't leave a sandwich on the counter. Didn't act like a guest had been there at all. And when I brought up the Mustang the next morning, just casually mentioned the out-of-state car, she shrugged it off. Probably someone visiting the neighbors, she said. Why? You taking notes now? She laughed, light and airy, but the bite was there. A quiet warning under the smile. I nodded and said nothing. But deep down, something clicked. I'd always trusted Laura. Blindly, maybe? But that night, something inside me stopped working the way it used to. I stopped assuming good intentions. Stopped brushing things off. I didn't have proof, not yet. But I knew. I knew. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there with my back to Laura, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rhythmic rise and fall of her breath like it was a metronome counting down to something I couldn't name. She fell asleep fast. That used to comfort me, knowing she could drift off easily, that she felt safe next to me. But now it felt different. She slept like someone who had nothing to hide. Or maybe like someone who had practiced hiding everything. The shadows in the room moved with the wind outside, casting unfamiliar shapes along the walls. I tried to close my eyes, tried to let it go, but my brain wouldn't stop replaying what I'd seen. The Berg *NY towel. The second coffee mug. The men's clothes folded too neatly, like someone had taken care to place them that way. And then something happened, something I didn't expect. My mind, normally straightforward and rational, started dragging old memories back into the spotlight. Moments I had dismissed. Things I had accepted. Little details that now seemed off. Like her new phone password. A few weeks ago, she changed it without saying anything. Not that she owed me an explanation, we weren't those people, the ones who snooped or shared every little thing. But it stuck with me. I remember asking her why, and she shrugged it off, saying work's tightening up security. Everyone's doing it. Only later did I realize she hadn't changed her work phone's password. Just the personal one. Then there was the perfume. For years, she wore the same light citrus scent, the kind that barely lingered, clean, easy. One day she came home smelling entirely different. Heavier. Richer. Spicy almost. When I mentioned it, she smiled and said she was trying something new, that the old one felt too soft lately. She said it was time to feel bold. I'd laughed and kissed her cheek. Told her it suited her. God, I was so naive. She started taking more weekend trips. Old friends from college, she said. They're going through stuff. I need to be there for them. She said it with so much conviction that I never questioned it. I even helped pack her bags a couple times. But I never met these friends. Never got a last name, a phone number, a selfie. Just vague references. At the time, I figured I was being a good partner by not prying. Now, I felt like a fool. And the social media changes, they were subtle, like a magician's sleight of hand. She stopped tagging me in photos. Then she stopped posting photos with me altogether. She archived the ones of us from last year's vacation. When I asked, she said she was going for a cleaner aesthetic. Said she was trying to rebrand. Whatever that meant. It was only now, lying next to her in the dark, that it occurred to me she was erasing the evidence of our life together. Quietly. Carefully. And that spa weekend. It was last month. She went up the coast to some boutique place with her usual vague group of girlfriends. While she was gone, I remember watching her Instagram stories. There was one clip, a short pan of the balcony view, waves crashing against the rocks, wine glasses on the table. She captioned it, "Girl time water wave wine glass woman getting massage her heart." But there was a moment, just a second, where the camera caught a reflection in the glass partition. A man. Tall. Shirtless. Walking across the room behind her. I remember blinking at it, rewatching, thinking maybe it was a trick of the light. I even showed it to my buddy Liam, jokingly asking, think one of her friends brought a boyfriend along? He shrugged. Probably. Or just a dude walking by. I had brushed it off. She came home that Sunday night tan and relaxed, smelling like salt and eucalyptus. She wore new earrings, little gold studs. I complimented them. She smiled, told me they were part of a gift bag from the resort. I didn't press. But I should have. Now I replayed the video in my mind on a loop. Every blink, every detail. The man's posture. The timing. The fact that she never showed the rest of the room. And then I realized something chilling. The earrings weren't from a gift bag. I'd seen them before in an ad for a local jeweler, part of a couple's Valentine's collection. I shifted in bed, suddenly too hot under the sheets. She stirred beside me but didn't wake. I studied the curve of her back, her hair spread out over the pillow, the ring on her finger catching the faint light from the window. Was any of it real? Or had she been pulling away piece by piece, waiting for me to notice? A wave of nausea hit me. I got up quietly and walked to the kitchen, standing in the glow of the refrigerator as I poured myself a glass of water. Everything felt surreal, like I'd stepped out of my life and into someone else's. I glanced at the coffee mugs still drying on the rack. Mine and his. The green one. Still there. She hadn't put it away. Hadn't washed it out. Just left it like a breadcrumb. I carried it to the trash and stood there for a long time. Then, without thinking, I placed it gently on the back shelf of the cabinet behind a stack of dishes we never use. I don't know why. Maybe part of me needed to hold onto the proof. Back upstairs, she shifted as I got into bed. Her voice was muffled by the pillow. Can't sleep? No, I said. Too much on my mind. She made a soft, sympathetic noise, a hum that used to soothe me. You work too hard, she whispered. I didn't reply. I didn't trust my voice. The rain had stopped, but the wind kept blowing. And my mind kept racing, rewinding, remembering. Every laugh that felt forced. Every late night she stayed downstairs, texting with her screen tilted away from me. Every time I'd asked how her day was and she'd answered too quickly like she was reading from a script. I didn't want to believe it. Didn't want to be that guy, suspicious, paranoid, broken. But this wasn't imagination anymore. It was patterns. Habits. A trail of tiny betrayals disguised as normalcy. She was slipping away. And I didn't know if I could or should stop her. So I lay there in the dark, wide awake, next to a woman I loved but no longer recognized. And as the first light crept over the horizon, I made a quiet promise to myself. I'd stop being blind. There's a line between suspicion and certainty, a narrow, jagged one. And once you cross it, there's no going back. I used to think privacy was sacred. That snooping was something desperate people did. But after that night, with all the puzzle pieces finally clicking into place, I realized I wasn't desperate, I was done being in the dark. So I crossed the line. It started with her tablet. She never used it much, kept it in the nightstand drawer beneath a tangle of old chargers and receipts. I remembered the last time she opened it was to read during a flight, maybe 6 months ago. So when I turned it on one morning while she was in the shower, I wasn't expecting much. No fingerprint lock. Just the same passcode she used to use on her phone before it mysteriously changed. Once it booted up, I downloaded a basic location tracking app. Nothing fancy. Just something that would ping her location every 15 minutes. It synced with my phone automatically. It felt wrong, like I was becoming someone else. But it also felt like the only option I had left. I didn't act right away. I waited. Collected data. She said she was going to the co-op downtown. I checked and she was. Lunch with her sister? Yep. Everything lined up for a while. Then came the book club. She mentioned it casually while we were cleaning up after dinner one Thursday. I might be home late tomorrow, she said, scrubbing a wine glass. Book club's meeting at Dana's place. We're discussing that new murder mystery, the one you said sounded cheesy. I forced a smile. Sounds intense. Enjoy. Friday came. She dressed down, yoga pants, oversized hoodie, no makeup. The kind of look meant to say, just a casual hang with the girls. She even pulled her hair back into a sloppy bun, the way she used to when we first met. At 6:03 p.m. she kissed me on the cheek and left with her tote bag and a bottle of white wine. By 6:20, the tracker showed her heading in the opposite direction of Dana's place. I watched the little blue dot on my phone move east, away from downtown, away from any bookstore or cafe. My hands shook. My heart didn't race like I thought it would. Instead, everything slowed down. Like I'd expected this moment all along. She drove for almost 40 minutes. Wound her way up into a quiet area near a lake, the kind of secluded spot people used for weekend getaways. Private cabins and rental homes. Places built for silence. Then the dot stopped. She parked by a long gravel driveway off a road called Pine Hollow Way. I searched the address. No public business. No friend named Dana lived there. Just a 2-story lake house surrounded by trees, tucked out of sight from the road. I stared at the map until the screen dimmed. Then I grabbed my jacket and keys and left without saying a word. The drive felt surreal. Trees rushed past the window in a blur of green and gray. My mind kept playing defense, offering excuses she might give. Maybe Dana had moved. Maybe she was house-sitting. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. But deep down I knew. I parked down the hill, around a bend where the trees were thickest. K** led the engine and walked the rest of the way, staying close to the tree line. And there it was, the Mustang. Same one from that first night. Parked in the driveway like it belonged there. I crouched behind a shrub, barely breathing. The house had big front windows, no curtains. From my vantage point, I could see right into the living room. It was lit by a dozen small lamps, cozy and staged like a rental brochure. Then I saw her. Laura. She was barefoot, wearing those soft navy pajama pants she always claimed were too old to wear around anyone but you. Her hair was down, curled loosely over her shoulders. She was laughing, really laughing, the kind that made her eyes crinkle and her hand rest gently on her chest. And then he appeared. He stepped into view from the kitchen, holding a bottle of champagne. Tall, dark hair. White shirt, sleeves rolled. The same man from the reflection in the spa photo. No doubt about it. She took the bottle from him, popped it with a grin, and poured 2 glasses. They clinked them together, toasted something I couldn't hear, and then she climbed into his lap. Not in a friendly, familiar way. Not like someone goofing around. This was different. An asterisk mate. Her hands around his neck. His fingers brushing her side. They kissed. Then they stood, arms still wrapped around each other, and disappeared down the hallway. I stayed there, in the dark, gripping a tree trunk like it could hold me up. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even move. I just stood there, the bark digging into my palms until my legs gave out and I sank to the ground. It was one thing to suspect. Another to know. But to see it, that did something else. That changed me. Eventually, I made it back to my car. Drove in silence to a dingy roadside motel 15 minutes away. I didn't even remember checking in. Just paid in cash, took the key, and climbed into bed without bothering to take off my shoes. I stared at the cracked ceiling for hours. Thought about our wedding. The first apartment we lived in. The night we got caught in a thunderstorm and laughed all the way home. The good things. The real things. Wondered if any of them meant anything to her anymore. She was probably still with him. Right now. Maybe asleep. Maybe wrapped around him the same way she used to hold me. The image burned. I wanted to hate her. Wanted to feel something explosive. But instead I felt hollow. Like everything inside me had been scooped out. Eventually I drifted off, not to sleep, but to some state of numbness. And when the sun came up, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to scream or beg for answers. I'd already seen the truth. That was more than enough. No more guessing. No more hoping. Just action. When I walked through our front door the next morning, everything looked the same: cereal bowls in the sink, her flip-flops by the door, the faint smell of coconut conditioner trailing from the bathroom. If someone had taken a snapshot of the place, you wouldn't guess it was a crime scene, not in the traditional sense anyway. She was already gone. Work, supposedly. She'd texted a casual morning heart like nothing happened. Like she hadn't spent the night wrapped in someone else's arms. I stared at the message on my phone, letting the silence fill the room around me. Then I deleted it. There wasn't going to be a fight. No dramatic ultimatums. No long, teary confrontation in the kitchen. I'd seen enough for a lifetime. Words wouldn't fix what was broken. They wouldn't rewind the laughter I watched her share with him. They wouldn't erase how at home she looked in that lake house. Instead, I got to work. First, the essentials: birth certificate, social security card, passport. I retrieved them from the file cabinet in the office while she was away. I gathered bank statements, account passwords, rental agreements. Anything that had my name on it or both of ours. I spent the afternoon opening a separate bank account at a different credit union. Transferred enough to live on for a while. Not everything. Just what was mine. Then I contacted a friend from college, someone I hadn't seen in years, who now managed a quiet apartment building on the other side of the city. He owed me a favor. When I told him I needed something under a different name, something short-term, he didn't ask questions. Just gave me a unit number, a key code, and a blank lease. Next came the packing. I took only what mattered: a suitcase of clothes, a box of keepsakes, my tools, and my guitar. Left the rest. The framed photos. The mugs we bought in Charleston. The his and hers towel set she insisted on. I didn't want any of it. I also erased myself digitally. Logged out of shared accounts. Deleted synced calendars, cloud backups, social platforms. Changed every password. Cancelled anything that left a trace, the Spotify family plan, the grocery delivery subscription, the joint email we used for house bills. The more I erased, the lighter I felt. By Sunday night, I stood in the middle of our living room with my bags packed and everything silent around me. No note. No confrontation. I just wasn't going to be here anymore. But then I saw it, the photo. It sat on the mantel, framed in simple black wood. The one she used to show off when people came over. "That's us in Portland," she'd say, pointing to our windblown hair and goofy grins. The weekend we decided we were going to make this work. I stared at that photo for a long time. I'd never been so happy to be wrong about someone. In the end, I left it on the kitchen table. Right next to it, I placed a single sheet of paper. No anger, no blame. Just a sentence. "You made your choice. I've made mine." And then I left. I drove to the apartment, parked in the underground garage, and climbed the stairs with my bag over my shoulder. The unit was small, one bedroom, no dishwasher, dated carpet. But it was clean. Safe. Mine. That night, I slept on the floor with nothing but a blanket and the sound of distant traffic outside. And for the first time in weeks, I slept without waking up in a cold sweat. She didn't call. Not the next day. Not the day after. Not once. At first, I thought maybe she hadn't seen the note. Maybe she thought I was away on a trip. But days passed. Then a week. No calls. No emails. No messages. Nothing. I realized then she wasn't surprised. She wasn't worried. She was waiting for me to remove myself from the equation. And I had. I went to work like usual, told my boss I'd moved for personal reasons, kept my head down. I didn't explain. Didn't offer details. Just showed up, did my job, and went home. Evenings were the hardest. The moments between 7 and 9 when we used to cook together, sit on the porch, watch reruns of crime shows we both pretended not to like. I found myself reaching for my phone to text her jokes, then stopping. Old reflexes die hard. I started eating alone. Walking alone. Filling the quiet with podcasts, music, white noise, anything to keep the ache at bay. But slowly something shifted. I noticed I was breathing easier. Thinking clearer. The weight in my chest lightened bit by bit. The guilt began to fade, the guilt of wondering if I was doing the right thing, if I'd misjudged her, if maybe I'd overreacted. Because here's the thing, someone who wants you in their life doesn't let you disappear without a word. She didn't chase me. She didn't even look. So I stopped waiting for a knock on the door. Stopped hoping for an apology. Started building a life from scratch. One night, I lit a candle just for me and sat on the floor of my new apartment with a beer and a worn notebook I hadn't touched in years. I started writing again. Sketching pieces of songs I'd abandoned long ago. Scribbling memories I didn't want to lose. I wrote about our first kiss under the bridge near my old high school. The night we danced barefoot in the kitchen to music only we could hear. The way she used to talk in her sleep when she was anxious. And then I wrote about the Mustang. The towel. The champagne. I didn't try to make sense of it. I didn't frame it as a lesson. I just let the truth live on the page. Somewhere between the first and last line, I realized I wasn't broken anymore. I'd just been burned. And burns heal. She never came looking for me. Never replied to the note. Never texted to ask where I'd gone. And I stopped expecting her to. Some stories don't end with closure. They just end. So I stopped being a character in hers and started writing my own. 2 months. That's how long it took before I saw her again. By then, I was someone else, not metaphorically. I'd legally changed my name to Sean Brady. Nothing drastic, just enough to create space. The kind of name that doesn't catch attention. I'd rented a place above an old auto shop near the coast. A town too small for strangers, but too transient to care. I worked in the shop during the day, hands covered in grease, surrounded by the smell of rubber and old engines. It was honest work. Quiet. Nobody knew who I used to be. Nobody asked. And I didn't tell them. I thought I was done with Laura. Truly. I hadn't spoken her name out loud in weeks. I'd stopped checking her social media, stopped wondering if she missed me. I was rebuilding one bolt and gasket at a time. Then she walked through the front door. I was under a car, socket wrench in hand, when I heard the bell. I remember wiping my forehead, squinting into the sunlight as a silhouette stepped into the bay. The voice that followed stopped me cold. "Excuse me, is Sean here?" I rolled out from under the chassis, blinking. My heart dropped to my stomach. It was her. Laura. Same eyes. Same voice. Same effortless poise. But different, too. Tighter around the mouth. Paler. Her hair pulled back too neatly, like she was trying to look composed but hadn't slept in days. I stood slowly, the wrench dangling in my hand. "You shouldn't be here," I said, my voice flat. She didn't flinch. "I know." The other guys in the shop gave us a glance and then went back to work. No one recognized her. No one knew me well enough to put anything together. I led her to the alley behind the garage. She followed without speaking, clutching a small notebook to her chest like it was a life preserver. The wind off the ocean carried the scent of salt and diesel. "What do you want?" I asked. Her eyes darted around, scanning the alley before settling on me. "I didn't come to fight," she said. "I came to warn you." I crossed my arms. "That's rich." "I know how it sounds, Jake." "Sean." She blinked. "Right, Sean." She glanced down at the notebook. "I found something. I didn't know how else to get it to you. You could have emailed, mailed it, or not at all." She opened the notebook and handed me a folded page. "Please, just read it." I hesitated, then unfolded it. It was handwritten, a list of dates, locations some I recognized. Our old house, the lake cabin, and next to each one notes, observations. Jake leaves at 6:45 a.m. She locks the door behind him, returns at 2:12 p.m. There were arrows, timestamps, and a line scrawled across the bottom. "He's watching both of us." "What is this?" I asked, my throat dry. "It's Thomas," she said. "The guy you saw me with." I stiffened. "Your boyfriend?" "No," she said quickly. "Not anymore. Not after what I found." She started pacing, words tumbling out. "After you left, he moved in with me. It was fast, too fast. He said he loved me, said we should start over. But something was off. He asked questions about you. Weird ones. Where you might go. If you had family. I told him I didn't know. He got angry. I said nothing." She continued, "I thought he was just jealous. But then I found this notebook hidden in his car. Notes about you. Your routines. Your passwords. Photos of our mail, your signature. Jake, he's not just some guy I cheated with. He's dangerous." I wanted to laugh. It would have been easier to believe she was delusional, dramatic, lying to win sympathy. But the notebook, it was detailed. Disturbingly so. "He's been watching me?" I asked. "And me," she said. "He knew things I hadn't told him. Where I used to work. My sister's birthday. At first I thought it was coincidence or stuff he remembered from when we talked. But some of it, he couldn't have known." She pulled out her phone, scrolling to a picture. It was of her front door, taken from the street at night. "I didn't take this," she said. "It was in my camera roll last week." A cold wave crept up my spine. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "You didn't care what happened to me. You watched me walk away without a word." "I didn't know," she said quietly. I thought he was different. He made me feel like I was escaping something. But now I realize, he was setting the whole thing up." She looked at me, her voice dropping. "Jake, he's not just a manipulator. He's a predator." I stared at the notebook again. My name, my movements, my handwriting copied and compared. "You said he asked about my family." She nodded. "And your new job, your aliases." "He said if I didn't help him find you, he'd ruin both of us." The wind picked up, rustling the pages in her hands. Her eyes were glossy now, but not soft, not emotional. "You're scared," I said. "No," she said. "I'm being hunted." I wanted to believe she was lying, that she was spinning this because she was alone now, because her world had cracked and she needed a lifeline. But I remembered the lake house, the champagne, the smirk on his face when she kissed him, and now, a list of my last known addresses written in the same hand. "Why come to me?" I asked. "You didn't exactly leave things open for reconciliation." Her voice was low. "Because I thought you were just collateral. But you weren't. You were part of it. From the beginning." She pulled out another sheet. A journal page. Thomas's handwriting, messy and erratic. Laura was easy. Jake is too clean. Predictable. Will take longer. Must isolate. My hands went cold. What does this mean? I asked. She shook her head. I don't know. But it's not over. And if he finds you, he won't, I cut in. He doesn't know where I am. She didn't respond. Just looked away. The silence stretched between us. I don't need your protection, Laura, I said. I needed your honesty. 2 months ago. She nodded slowly. I know. But now I need yours. That was the last thing I expected, not fear in her voice, but control. Like this was her way back in. She wanted safety. Or maybe leverage. Or maybe both. And I had no idea if the danger was real or just another part of her game. After Laura left the garage, I sat in the alley for a long time, the pages she'd handed me spread out across my lap. Everything about this situation felt twisted, like I'd stepped into a story I didn't agree to star in. If even half of what she said was true, then Thomas wasn't just some guy who swooped in during our rough patch. He had planned this. All of it. I needed answers. Real ones. So I did what I do best, I started digging. New name or not, I still had access to the internet, burner accounts, and a couple of contacts from an old online forum for fraud detection, people who lived off the grid by choice, not circumstance. The name Thomas Green turned up fast. Multiple aliases. Past charges in at least 2 states. Fraud, identity theft, psychological harassment. No convictions. Always slipped through. His social presence was nearly non-existent, but I found a cluster of anonymous posts on a manipulation subforum, all written in the same voice, same phrasing Laura had shown me. Arrogant. Calculating. In one thread, he described testing emotional durability on passive control subjects. It didn't take long to realize one of those subjects was me. He called me the variable who thinks he's the constant. That stung more than I wanted to admit. Then it hit me, none of this was random. Laura, me, our relationship, it was curated. Staged. The connection I thought was fate? It was bait. I wasn't her partner. I was her mark. Every late-night apology. Every silent tear. Every time she said, I don't know what's wrong with me. It had all been rehearsed. And the worst part? I believed her. Once I accepted that, I stopped trying to understand her. I stopped wondering if she ever really loved me. She didn't. She couldn't. Not in the way I needed to be loved. So I compiled everything, every document, screenshot *T, journal scan, audio snippet I could dig up into one encrypted folder. And then I sent it to someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Layla, a former classmate turned investigative journalist. Back in college, she could make a story sing with just a headline. She owed me a favor. This time, she didn't ask why. What's the angle, she asked over the phone. Emotional manipulation, calculated breakups, identity threats. No names. Just facts. She hesitated for maybe 2 seconds. Then, I'm in. 3 weeks later, the piece went live. A long-form essay about psychological predators featuring a relationship carefully engineered to test control and vulnerability in the real world. Names were changed. No faces shown. But the right people saw it. And Laura disappeared. No dramatic send-off. No public collapse. Just silence. The Mustang was gone. Her apartment emptied. She vanished like smoke. There was no trial. No fallout. Just whispers. Warnings. Rumors in the corners of the internet about a woman who we *P***ni's defection and the man behind her who pulled the strings. I moved again, this time to Colorado. New job, new town, new name. I adopted a rescue dog, a scruffy little mutt who wagged her tail like she knew I needed her more than she needed me. I started sleeping again. Eating right. Letting my phone die without panic. I don't check her socials anymore. I don't Google Thomas Green. I don't reread the journal pages or revisit the story Layla published. I just live. No one here knows who I used to be. And I don't volunteer the story. Because for the first time in years, I'm not playing a role in someone else's script. I'm not hiding. I'm not chasing. I'm not looking back. I'm just free.